Okay, I'd like to share some advice for you guys that I was giving a friend. Anyways, the synopsis was, why does my significant other not want to move to the next level with me, based on religion and everything? And, I had some sort of experience in this, but sometimes you have to get in a different mindset to kind of see in someone else's shoes. Um, So I'll give some examples that might help if you're struggling here. So I enjoy reading on like psychology and um, some things with science, neuroscience mainly. Um, I watched this movie with George Clooney involving a backpack. So I'm going to talk about a backpack and how I kind of morphed this into my own idea here. And so you got this backpack, it's completely empty, it's very lightweight, and you've heard of the saying, weight on your shoulders, everything feels heavy, there's so much going on, blah, 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 okay? And this can go for other things too, it doesn't have to be this scenario. So just think about it like this. So someone sees having sex before marriage as a sin. You're having the hardest time getting your head wrapped around this because you've already lost it. You have no intentions to change, blah, blah, blah. But maybe if I put like some other perspectives here, maybe this, or in another example you're having might make sense. And this doesn't have to be on this type of subject either. This could just be with your life. Like maybe you're just taking on too much. Okay. For one, let's pretend I'm writing an English paper and it's why not to have sex before marriage. Just let's go theoretically there. And so the first thing is you're dealing with this backpack, it's very light, and pretend every time something happens, you're putting rocks in there. Each rock is eventually going to feel very heavy. So you have sex, you get a disease, okay, multiple rocks probably, because it's going to weigh on you very heavily for a long, long time. And maybe they're even super glued to the backpack. So now you're going to have the harder time with it. As well as if you were to have a kid, for example. Those are going to be pretty super glued. Maybe Gorilla Glue. Now, you know with time, with adhesives or glue, that they can come loose over time. So eventually, maybe in 18 years or something, this backpack, per se, with the glue might eventually wear out the glue adhesive and eventually the rocks can fall. And maybe one day those rocks can be removed, for example. So those are just a couple of ideas. But let's put it this way. I think it's probably more important to be in love with someone first because, like, let's say you get really involved with this person and you get really attached to that feeling. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go into like the science type of things. So you know that it can be very addictive. And you start to crave it a lot and you'll find other ways to get it, whether it's cheating or taking care of it yourself. And you can have withdrawals and everything because of it, and it can make you angry. It can give you migraines. It can make everything seem off and you can never think straight. It's very addictive, just like a drug or anything. This can go for fast food. We can even be thinking about fast food right now, drinking alcohol, whatever you want to put into these details, and just trying to break it down on different levels. So you already know that there is an addiction here. And let's put some really weird scenario out there. Let's say you're a guy and you have a dick and it got really infected, so they cut it down and you have to pee in a bag, or you have a little hole now to pee out of. Your partner fell for you only based on sex. Now it's like, well, what do they have to offer? Or why are you even with this person? And now you're depressed as fuck because you base the entire relationship on an addiction that you don't have anything else to fall back on. Now, granted, it's going to be depressing in the first place, but it's going to be more depressing when you realize this is the only thing your relationship had. So this is also another reason why it's really important. I can see why, like maybe in a religion base, why it's important to make sure you have a more permanent person in your life and not just a temporary person that you thought was going to turn permanent. Okay, now going back into like the addiction side of things, someone stops it right away, you know, your addiction, cold turkey, obviously you're not yourself anymore. So that's another example. Like, just chemically, it can mess you up. You get really attached to this person, and you know, you fall for them, and they leave. So you throw this rock in the backpack again, and every time, even when someone leaves, there's still some sort of thought there. Like every now and then you miss that person, even if you hate their guts or something. There's always some sort of weight added from every partner or relationship or whatever subject we're talking about. Even if it's the weight of fast food, like if we go back to that subject as an addiction. Some sort of weight is being added, and that's the rock in the backpack again. And every time you do this, it is another rock. Okay? Eventually, your backpack becomes very heavy, and you're wondering why you're so stressed out. You have the weight of the world. This is just like one subject. Can you imagine if you added like work factors in there, your finances in there, car problems, kid problems, dog cat problems, like they're going to the vet, they die, I'm just talking about there's a lot of ways that you're creating these rocks and weights. And every time you deliberately are putting more weight that you could have avoided, like let's say you found one partner. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that's always realistic, but I'm just saying, like, let's say you waited and you had one partner, you would only have one rock in there. You wouldn't have the baggage of all these other relationships or sex partners or whatever even happened to you, as these rocks. And then your whole life, you are trying to remove these rocks after adding more in there. So every time you're adding something in there, you're adding all this weight, and your whole life you are spending trying to remove the weight off your shoulders. And there are certain ways that we can avoid a lot of this. Look at Buddhists and how they practice. This doesn't have to go for just like a Catholic religion, giving all that off. It's also, like Buddhism, like when you get really involved into it and you start meditating, you're removing all these things, and you're working a lot of removing the weight in your life. It's a lot. You have to really practice and make sure that you're setting set times. And, obviously with time, they've said that, some Buddhists have had interesting things that have happened that felt like they were floating, or as they walk, it felt like they were almost walking on air because everything felt so light. They felt like a feather. There are some weird things that have been said about people who are so at peace with themselves, how light everything feels. And so just trying to find ways that aren't adding these rocks into your backpack can make life feel like a breeze. I was watching Last Samurai, and one of the lines in there is too much mind. And they use this with, I think, martial arts or whatnot, if I remember right. And a lot of times you can do a lot of things on another type of autopilot that you're unaware of. Like, if you can drive all the time and not realize it, imagine how much more other things you could be doing on autopilot and make life so much easier because you are so weightless that everything feels so natural and it doesn't take all the strain, and you don't feel tired all the time and drained and just overworked by everything. And it's because you're adding all these rocks in your... And I mean, honestly, like, if you're trying to look at this person who went that route, they're just trying to have one rock in their backpack. How can you be upset with that point of view? It's like, wow, they want peace, and that's all you obtain your whole life. Some of you may never even find it till you're 60, 80 years old, or even the final years of your life. And that's all everyone tries to go after. And people are just trying to create their peace now so they can actually have a very peaceful, long journey. And there's nothing wrong with that. And by looking at that they want to be the best them, maybe that's a perspective to look at so you can maybe understand their point of view. And this doesn't have to be just about that subject. This could be relationships. Every time you're trying to make a relationship work, it's another rock. Maybe different sizes, depending on the length of them. But going in and out of these relationships that people are doing, it's unhealthy for you and it's unhealthy for the people that you're doing it to. You're hurting all the people around you, and it's not humane at all. It's not humane to keep going in and out of people's lives. And, this is why humanity is hurting. The whole human race is hurting in multiple ways. Everyone's giving each other all this weight, whether it's bullying, whether it's putting someone down, in that category. Really, we're just putting rocks in each other's backpack. Like, someone's not looking, you're putting in there. When you're putting someone down, you don't realize it. But here's the thing, why you're putting a rock in someone else's backpack, guess what's happening? Do unto others as you want done to you. There's a verse about the stick in the eye in the Bible, which basically is kind of the same thing. Karma, whatever term you want to use it as, while you're doing anything to someone else, you're putting a rock in there, per se, in their backpack. Guess what? Sometimes that rock weighs twice as much on your own backpack. And sometimes it might take you 5-10 years to realize that, wow, I have all this weight. Where did it come from? Because you were too busy putting rocks in other people's backpacks. And basically, somehow it came back to you like a boomerang and added twice the weight. And it's important to just work through all these and work on forgiveness and actually talk to these people and actually tell them you're sorry. Try and relieve their own weight. I know that if you try and take someone else's rock away, you feel a lot better. It's like giving to the needy or the poor. There's some sort of peace in giving to people. And if you can give a little bit more of a weightlifting experience for someone, and you can take away some of that, do it, because it's going to come right back to you. It's funny how that works. You could take away their one little rock. You have this big giant one in there. All you got to do is be more humane. We need to be more humane in so many ways, regardless of what category it is. You're only doing it to yourself. You may think that you're doing it to someone else, but really, you're just hurting yourself more than you're even hurting the other person. And it's important that we're starting to work on ourselves now, because sometimes peace takes practice. It takes a lot of mistakes, and it takes a lot of time. You can't just dump the backpack out and empty it. It takes time, and we're not always promised every day. And sometimes, this person might not be made for you. They might be made for someone else. But think, maybe there's a reason to their reasoning. And it's something you don't see now until maybe you're mature enough to understand it.